Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast with our number 4 hitter, our cleanup hitter, Rob Veno, wagertalk.com at Rob Veno Sports. Robbie, welcome in. How are you doing?
I am good today. This is, for a long time running, and you've been doing this for a long time as well. This is one of my favorite segments of the week, this Every Game on the Board, because we get to speak about college football conferences generally. We get a batch of games that don't often get talked about. And I know that the two of us enjoy that. Midweek Maction and midweek Sunbelt is coming. November's right ahead of us. So it's good to talk about a few of these teams for sure.
Absolutely, Robbie. Hey, I don't know if have you had a chance to look at next week's Maction? Because I'm not sure we're not going to get to talk before the Tuesday, Wednesday slate. Have you looked at it?
You know what? Ralph actually put out a schedule of all the games for the month of November, what days they are, but I didn't look at it, so I don't have the answer.
Okay. Yeah, no, it does start next week, guys. Tuesday, Wednesday, Maction. So get ready for that. College football starting early next week. But for this segment, if you're new to the Every Game on the Board podcast, we hit every single game on the college football betting board. We just go down in numerical order. Those little numbers next to the team name is rotation numbers, and we go down in order. We already had 3 parts in the books. Mid-major Matt, Teddy covers, Kelly Stewart. Now we have our 4-hole hitter, Rob Veno, finishing it off in order, 175, 176, South Florida, Houston, down to the end of the card. So we got South Florida, Houston here, Robbie. AAC matchup, 61 being the total, minus 17.5. That's Houston at home, kicking us off on Saturday, 12 noon Eastern, Rob.
Yeah, Houston got back kind of in good graces last week with that win over Navy, drew 38-20. However, I'd be more inclined to take 17.5 here with South Florida. If there's one thing that's changed about USF this year, it's been their commitment to the running game. And they've been halfway decent running the football because they've incorporated quarterback runs into the offense. Jerry Bohannon, the Baylor transfer, has been pretty good running the football for them. They've started to score points between 24 and 31 in 4 of their last 5. And there was a point the last couple of years, really, where South Florida couldn't score at all. So I like the turn in offense. And when you're taking 17.5 and you have a team that can run, Houston's a decent run defense, but they're not shut down by any means. So South Florida can control the football a little bit. They've been able to do that somewhat, and they do that by slowing the pace. They rank 113 in the nation in seconds per play. They take 28 seconds between snaps. And when you're getting first downs and running the football and taking that long, kind of limits the possessions here. 17.5 becomes a little bit larger. Houston hasn't beaten anybody, Drew, until the Navy game last week. They hadn't beaten anybody by this many points. They hadn't beaten a team by more than 8 all season long. They've had 3 overtime games. They have SMU, a rival on deck. I just think a lot of things align here for South Florida, which seems to be on a little bit of an ascension offensively. The problem with them is their defense is brutal. They've given up 16 touchdowns outside the red zone already. Lucky for them, and this could change at any point with the Houston Cougars team, but lucky for them, Houston has not been as explosive as we've seen them in the past. They've only scored 4 times. Touchdowns outside the 20-yard line this year. So it's not the Houston team of the past. They do still gain a lot of yards. Just haven't been able to pull those big chunk touchdowns. Hopefully, if you're on USF, they don't do it this week. But I think plus 17.5 is a pretty good way to look.
Sounds like totals-wise, 60.5 available out there. Look towards the over as well, Rom?
You could certainly look there because 61's a key. 37, 24, 38, 23. A lot of games fall on 61. So, I wouldn't recommend under. That's for sure. There's good weather there in that game. So that could be a total play over the number.
Staying in the American here, 3:30 Eastern, 177, 178. SMU at Tulsa. We're seeing Southern Miss, the Mustangs, -2, as high as -3 out there, mostly 2.5 road favorite, 64 the total in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Robbie.
Here's another one where you could probably see all kinds of points, right? I mean, these two teams, the problem here is the quarterback situation, and mostly it lands on SMU here because for Tulsa, their starting quarterback, and boy, they got off to a flying start offensively with Davis Brin throwing the football this season. But then he got hurt, limped through a couple of games, I think sat out a game. Their backup is not the same passer that Davis Brin is, more of a running team they become when he's in the game, so they didn't move the ball as well as efficiently. But Brin seems to be as healthy as he's been in, let's say, the last 5 weeks for this game. So that's good where Tulsa's concerned. Where SMU's concerned,
looks like we had a little bit of a technical difficulty there with Robbie.
No.
SMU Tulsa. Okay, we got you back here, Robbie. Yeah. I guess we could just finish off SMU Tulsa.
Oh. And real quick, Tanner Mordecai gets a concussion last week, so his status is still up in the air. But they bring in Preston Stone. And if you guys remember, Preston Stone's now a sophomore, I think. But this was a huge Sonny Dykes recruit. This kid had offers from Alabama, from Georgia, all over the place. And they've just been waiting for him to step in and be the heir apparent to the job. But Mordecai's been so good that he really hasn't been able to take it yet. He came in last week. I think if he plays, Drew, if Preston Stone plays, SMU might not suffer that much against this Tulsa defense. Neither team runs the ball well. Neither team stops the run. So maybe they can get a little bit of a ground game going. If they do, they both pass. I mean, each team averages over 300 yards a game throwing the football. They both sit inside the top, I think, 25 where pace is concerned, seconds per play. SMU is up in the top 5, I think number 2 in the country. They go the second fastest of anybody. So I think you see a lot of up and down here, a lot of porous defense. Both teams need it. It's that time of year, Drew, where we're going to start talking about bowl eligibility, right? You got to get the 6, and we're always sitting here at week 9. Both of these teams need this game, so you think you'll get full focus. The only difference I could come up with in this game that tilts the scales, tilts it towards SMU, Tulsa's pass protection has been lousy. They've given up 28 sacks, SMU only 14. And Tulsa's pass rush has been lousy. Only 7 sacks on the entire season. SMU has 15. So they're kind of double as good as Tulsa is in both of those categories. Maybe it makes a difference here, but home field could be tough at Tulsa, and it hasn't exactly been easy in this matchup for SMU. Tulsa's been kind of a thorn in their side.
Heading to the Big 12 for the next two here. 3:30 Eastern kick, 179, 180. As we're heading down in numerical order, Oklahoma State and Kansas State, Robbie. Arguably the game of the weekend here. 56 being the total. Anywhere from -1 to -1.5. That's Kansas State as the home favorite. We get the Cowboys and the Wildcats in the Little Apple. What are you thinking in the Big 12, Robbie?
Yeah, so real quick, you and I did a panel video for Wager Talk where we discussed this thing pretty thoroughly. I'm going to give the Reader's Digest version here real quick. I like a couple of plays here, Drew, but it's really dependent upon how the injury status goes here for Kansas State. I still don't have a definitive answer on Adrian Martinez, that quarterback. And I think the way KSU is so close to the vest with injury news, you may not know until game time here whether or not he's going to.
Yeah, it might be one of those things where, if Adrian Martinez runs out from the huddle, we get, maybe a little Kansas State money. But if not, we get some Oklahoma State money. I also did a video on this one. Oklahoma State 15-2, their last 17 against the spread. They've covered 10 of their last 11 on the road. So, Robbie, I think we got you back here. Mike Gundy, he's been an absolute money maker and going on the road here. That's why I like the Cowboys. Any closing thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think if Martinez and Deuce Vaughn both go, this game gets over the total. Oklahoma State's defense is just not the same, and it can be attacked. And Kansas State, believe it or not, has been a higher scoring over type team this year. If Martinez or Vaughn doesn't go, I like Oklahoma State. I'm with you. I trust Mike Gundy on the road in a huge game in the Big 12. There's a few of them because those teams are bunched up right now.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Big 12 guys. It might not be top heavy. People might, think the Big 10, the SEC, a lot better. The thing that the Big 12 has going for it, Robbie, is there's not a lot of anchors out there. There's not a lot of bad teams in the Big 12 to kind of rack up wins because they're all pretty good. Baylor, Texas Tech, speaking of kind of that nature of teams, 62.5 being the total, minus 2.5 at most shops as we're talking here on Thursday, guys. Night game in Lubbock. Tough spot here for Baylor. Texas Tech playing some good football. What are you liking in this one?
Yeah, and again, we seem to have the swatch of games here, Drew, where the offenses are really the best units on the field. However, Baylor's been good overall defensively this year. But I'm going to go back 2 weeks to when they went to Morgantown, West Virginia, and got lit up for 500 yards off offense and 43 points. They lose in Morgantown 43-40 because the defense just couldn't stop the run or the pass. And Texas Tech, certainly we know, can move the football. I mean, they come in with their third-team quarterback, Morton, last week, throws for 325, and it's the second time he's going over 300 yards passing. So they've got something going on there at Texas Tech. They run it a little bit better than they have in the past when they were strictly air raid. Again, Baylor shut down Kansas last week. But are they going to go on the road here? And the good news for Baylor real quick was quarterback Blake Shapen returned and played in that game. So you remember how good he was playing against West Virginia before he got hurt. He'll play here. Drew, I can't make a case for defensive football in this game, which has been the case for the Big 12 a lot this year. Total sitting at 62.5. It's going up 1 point. I'll put it mildly. I couldn't play under, and I'm a little scared to play Baylor, even though my power ratings made the game pick. I'm a little afraid to play Baylor off of the defensive performance I saw at Morgantown 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm surprised this total isn't more either. I got to check the weather in Lubbock, but night game there, a good one. Baylor and Texas Tech, another good one heading to the SEC here. Staying in the state of Texas, Mississippi at Texas A&M. We're seeing Ole Miss -2 here, Robbie. 54.5 being the total in College Station.
Yeah, boy. Texas A&M has so much talent on paper, Drew, that you keep waiting week in and week out for, what could be a breakout game, and it just really isn't happening for them. There's no consistency on that offense whatsoever. It's really hard to play them. I mean, if you back them, you're backing their defense against Lane Kiffin's offense, which actually did get shut down by LSU last week after building. I think Ole Miss had like a 17-0 lead or 17-3, and LSU just went berserk after that. Lane Kiffin's defense has been hit hard by teams that can actually move the football in the SEC, but Texas A&M cannot. I don't think they're worried about venue, Ole Miss, but if you're going to give me a matchup, and this is really what it comes down to for me. If you're going to give me a matchup of Lane Kiffin play calling against Jimbo Fisher, I'm not going to play Jimbo Fisher. Unless Mississippi makes mistakes, I think they win by a field goal for no other reason than I just believe more that Lane Kiffin's team can come up with a big play that Texas A&M can't unless their big play is going to be on defense. So protect the football, play Ole Miss. If they make a lot of mistakes, obviously, against anybody, you're going to lose. But I think they'll probably win that game.
Robbie, do you know if Jimbo Fisher is still calling his own plays? I haven't seen. Yes,
he was gonna turn that over a couple of weeks ago. Now I don't know definitively if he did or not. We don't know what goes on the sidelines, but yeah, there was a point a couple of weeks ago where he did say that he might turn play calling over. So, but the offense hasn't gotten any better.
Yeah, we got Arkansas and Auburn staying in the SEC West here. 12 noon Eastern kick here. So 11 a.m. local time on the Plains, Robbie. -3.5. That's Arkansas as the road favorite. 62 being the total. Speaking of bowl eligibility, kind of an important game here. What are you thinking with the Razorbacks and the War Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, Drew, because during portions of games, Auburn does show a lot of life. They just can't seem to close things out for a full 60 minutes at this point in time. And that there may be a talent gap, could be coaching, could be a lot of things where Auburn is concerned, but could be quarterback play, which is my idea. I just think their quarterback play isn't good enough for 60 minutes of football, where Arkansas's probably is. Not a game that I played, but I got to tell you, if I was going to play this, Arkansas's defense has really not been good all season long, and I do believe Auburn can score points against them. So if I were going to play, I'd probably look at the over in this contest in some capacity, maybe first half, maybe full game. But I do think KJ Jefferson and company will get theirs. They usually do. And that defense just hasn't improved all season long. So I would trust Auburn. They'd probably find their way to at least 24-27.
Yeah, it's an interesting handicap, Robbie. I mean, both teams, off of a bye. So that's a factor here. I mean, Arkansas has put up a bunch of points, particularly the last time out against BYU. I don't know, though, because a lot of people bring it up like, hey, can we make money betting against Auburn? I'm not totally against it, but at the same time, I agree with what you said at the top. They haven't quit on the season, and that's something we've seen in the past with Auburn that's been a great bet against. The only problem with this year is they really haven't. So I don't know. At home, plus 3.5 or minus 3.5 towards Arkansas. I haven't bet it either, Robbie, but good breakdown. We got Temple and Navy up next, heading back to the AAC. 41.5 being the total, minus 14. That's Navy at home. I don't know, Robbie. Laying 2 touchdowns here with a military academy. Is Temple that bad?
They're that bad, but I'm surprised. And the bettors have moved it this way. I think you have to believe that this game at least goes 35-7 and gets over the total of 41.5. Temple's run defense is atrocious. And against a triple option, they're going to be lit up by Navy. But the good news for Temple, if anybody's watched them the last couple of weeks, is Kurt Warner's son, E.J. Warner, now at quarterback. And he's got all the instincts of a really good quarterback. He makes some nice throws. Temple just doesn't have enough in the way of overall skill position talent. Last week against Tulsa, they hung in, but they just couldn't finish off drives. They do go for it a little bit on fourth down. They're trying anything they can to register some point production. But I think they can get 7 here against Navy. They could hit one big pass. This kid's very, very capable. And like I say, Navy's going to go for 35 or 38 at a minimum here, the way Temple plays run defense. So I think this number at 39 was very easy to bet over. I think at 41.5, like I say, at 35-7 gets you a ticket cashed. I think that happens here.
Robbie, heading to 189-190 here, 3:30 Eastern kick, North Texas at Western Kentucky. Interesting trip from Denton to Bowling Green, Kentucky. We do see Western Kentucky as a double-digit home favorite here. It opened 9.5, now minus 10 across the board, and we're seeing 70 as the total here, Rob. So Mean Green versus the Hilltoppers.
And boy, they got a big win last week, Drew. I think Western Kentucky ended up intercepting a pass in the end zone to preserve the victory last week, which was very, very big for them. And now they get to play North Texas in a game that should probably be a lot easier for Western Kentucky's offense to get into the end zone last week. Little tougher defense. Wasn't as easy for them throwing the football, but North Texas puts up zero resistance. However, the other side of that coin is Seth Luttrell has that offense pretty much humming on a weekly basis. And Western Kentucky's been, while they've been better defensively lately, still very, very susceptible to giving up points as well. We've seen this one come down from 71.5 down to 69.5. That could just be that people thought 71.5 was too high. But certainly North Texas has made 71.5 look small in a lot of instances this year. I could see this one getting back to the track meet style that Western Kentucky had been playing earlier against poor defenses, the way North Texas has played all season long. Western Kentucky is not that good defensively, not good enough to contain them. So, we're talking about a few games here that I really haven't played myself yet, but I could see at 69.5, now it's getting into that range where, 38-34 is real feasible in this contest. Western Kentucky could have a bit of a hangover from the big victory last week. So maybe plus points could be a way to look. And I do think over is probably the way to go in that game.
Next game up, much to the chagrin of the University of Georgia and the University of Florida. presidents here. We are going to call it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Robbie. 3:30 Eastern, CBS, 191, 192, the Florida Gators, Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia minus 22 in the hook, Robbie. Big favorites, more than 3 touchdowns here, 56.5 being the total. I don't know, Robbie. I was looking towards the Gators. What are you feeling here?
I think, this will be the third time you and I have been together to talk about this game this week. Guys, if you want longer analysis, Ralph Michaels, myself, and Drew did this on the Best Damn College Football Show. You can get some there. You can get Ralph's opinion as well. And then we did a panel video with Tony Finch. So if you want Tony's opinion, you can get it there as well. Here, I'll just say briefly, Drew, that this is the time of year, and Ralph hit on this yesterday, where these head coaches that want to get to the college football playoff, that have those aspirations, kind of hit the gas. And I know a lot's been made of the Tennessee game on deck for Georgia, but the college football playoff rankings do come out Tuesday. And I think you'd rather be more impressive than less impressive. That's not to say that if Georgia won this game, let's say they won like 31-24, no big deal, that they couldn't get right back to the number one spot by defeating Tennessee next week. They'll have that opportunity. But I think this game, they're a much more talented team. You and I both like Billy Napier as a head coach, but I don't think he's got his entire roster the way he wants it yet. Let's give him a recruiting class. The defense has been a sieve, and I think Georgia will take advantage. We always think of Georgia from a defensive standpoint because they're so good on that side of the ball. But it's about time we look at how good they are offensively. Number 2 in the country, averaging over 500 yards per game offense. Florida's going to have their hands full with that. Both teams are off a bye, both well prepared for it. I think Anthony Richardson on the Florida side, Drew, can make a couple of splash plays in this game. He's that good of an athlete. I think he can maybe make one with his legs, one with his arm. And maybe Florida comes out with a script that they prepared for 2 weeks now and hits Georgia with some surprises in this game. But over the course of 60 minutes, I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia wins big, and it probably gets over the 56.5.
We got a late night special here, guys. Hawaii on the island, 12 Eastern midnight kick for you. Wyoming at Hawaii, 51 being the total. Cowboys minus 10.5 point road favorites here, Robbie. Of course, we don't condone, betting anything you shouldn't. But if somebody's a little bit behind, wanting to get back late night Saturday night, what are you thinking here? Wyoming, Hawaii.
Listen, I'm thinking 3 cheers for Timmy Chang and what he's done for Hawaii over the course of like 7 games. They were a disaster out of the gate, and rightfully so, right? So many kids fled the program when the administration wouldn't fire Todd Graham, and then kids took off, and then they did fire Todd Graham, and Timmy Chang comes into a makeshift high school stadium with a makeshift roster and has to do something with it. But he loves the university and took on the challenge. And right now, the last 3 weeks, they've been right there. 16-14 lost to San Diego State, 17-13 loss last week to Colorado State, and in between a 31-16 win over Nevada. So Hawaii, all of a sudden, much better defensively, much more competitive. And for Wyoming, I don't know that there could be a more what's the word, Drew? A more polar opposite of places. Wyoming and Hawaii. I mean, that road trip can't be fun for the Cowboys. They'll try and run the football. There's no question. And this game just kind of reminds me of what Hawaii had against San Diego State, where I'm using Wyoming and San Diego State as kind of comparable teams, right? Good defense, run the football, shorten games. And Hawaii played that team on the road to 2 points. To play at home within 10.5 points of Wyoming, if they continue to play mistake-free the way they played the last 3 games, I think 10.5 is probably too much to give Hawaii here. Wyoming's certainly going to find their openings in the running game, but boy, to me, Hawaii's just shown signs of life. You and I were talking before we came on about Florida International being type of the same thing, a team that was an unmitigated disaster and now is finding its footing. I think Hawaii's the same thing. I'd probably, if I had to, look to take points with Hawaii at home in that game.
Yeah, it's an interesting handicap, isn't it, Robbie? I mean, part of me thinks Craig Bull, I want to trust that, but at the same time, Wyoming hasn't really been good on the road, and you bring up that type of profile bet, San Diego State and Wyoming, they do kind of, have a lot of similarities, and Hawaii hung with San Diego State. So you're right. Hawaii on the island, they're playing better. They've covered 3 straight and 4 of their last 5 of their last 6, whatever the case may be. They've been money makers. So yeah, good analysis there, Robbie. Heading down the list. From Hawaii to Florida Atlantic here might be the furthest west university to the furthest east university. I don't know if FAU is actually the furthest east university, but either way, long way away. UAB, FAU, 7:00 Eastern here, Robbie. -4.5, -5. That's the Blazers as the road favorite. 46.5 being the total. Interesting handicap here again, Robbie. UAB and FAU.
Yeah, overall, Drew, I still believe that UAB is the best team in that particular conference just because of, they stick to their identity as much as anybody. And in the end, they play defense that other CUSA teams don't play. However, it's a little tricky here because Florida Atlantic doesn't take a back seat talent-wise to UAB whatsoever. Florida Atlantic probably has as much talent. Florida Atlantic probably makes more mistakes. They're not as disciplined. They make the stuff that makes you pull the hair out of your head. They do the things that make you pull the hair out of your head when you have a ticket on them. But I could see them playing this close here, Drew. I really could. At home, they have all the weapons offensively. They are capable defensively. BYU is a little bit inconsistent. UAB, not BYU. UAB is a little bit inconsistent on the offensive end. Some weeks they bring it and they do everything right and they'll get you over 30 points. And there's other weeks where UAB, again, is problematic. I mean, Dylan Hopkins at quarterback has not really lit the world on fire. I'm inclined to take Florida Atlantic at home as the dog here in a meaningful conference game. Like I say, there's some matchups we can look at where we say that the rosters aren't equal talent-wise. These two are. And I know UAB defense travels. That's for sure. They have the better defense. But I just feel like the home team has the capability to spring the upset here. So in a league that's always been, a little bit up and down, I think we might see a small upset here. We're only getting 3.5, but more than a field goal, I think is probably worth taking.
Robbie, just a couple games left here. Second to last one, MTSU and UTEP. That's Middle Tennessee at Texas El Paso, 9:00 Eastern kick, 52 being the total, -1.5. That's the Miners as the road favorite, as high as -2.5 out there. Tough trip here, Murfreesboro, Tennessee to El Paso, Texas. Competitively priced game. Are you liking anything here in West Texas?
Yeah. When are they going to fire Dana Dimmel? I mean, I guess you don't get anybody better, right? So maybe they don't fire him. But for me, I'm a little bit biased towards Middle Tennessee because heading into the season, I thought that they were going to be a pretty good team to play either point spread wise or total wise. For those who don't know, they brought the offensive coordinator from Samford, FCS Samford University over here, who was an all-out air raid quarterback. And we've seen flashes of Chase Cunningham, the quarterback for MTSU, and that offense strike big. And I think they can here, Drew. I mean, you have a team off of a bye in Middle Tennessee, and they had played 3 extremely tough games heading into that bye where Conference USA standards are concerned. You play UTSA, one of the best, if not the best offense in the league and defending league champion. You play UAB, and then you play Western Kentucky. It's the 3 best teams in the conference. They played them all. Now they got to bye. They get to play UTEP, who plays pedestrian offense still. Don't throw the ball. Try and run the ball. Dana Dimmel is one of those prehistoric offensive guys. I think Middle Tennessee and Rick Stockstill off of that week off can do some things here. So I like Middle Tennessee. It's actually a game that I did play. Talked about a bunch that I didn't play, but I played MTSU here. I think they'll come up with a win, maybe by a touchdown or better.
We got one game left, guys. Talking with Robbie Veno, part number 4 of the Every Game on the Board podcast. First 3 parts on Twitter, on YouTube as well. And guys, we got a coupon code for you for Robbie Veno, also for myself, Drew Martin, Flash 100. That's FLASH 100 at checkout. Wagertalk.com takes $100 off, 30-day all access. Of course, all these sports going on. That's a good deal. Flash 100. Rob Veno, Drew Martin here. Last game up, Robbie. Degenerate special time slot, 10:30 Eastern kick. San Jose, California, 199-200 is the rotation number. Last game on the board. This will finish it off for the Every Game on the Board podcast. Nevada at San Jose State, Robbie, minus 24.5. That's the Spartans as the home favorite. 44.5 being the total. Got to bring this up, Robbie. 24.5 is the spread with 44.5 as the total. Those are always difficult, man. What do you like here in San Jose?
And I'm not one that's inclined to lay this type of number in any college football game. I usually just go right past it. But in this one, I think there's good reason to play San Jose State. First off, their defense against Nevada's offense is a mismatch to begin with. But this game is going to have a little extra to it, Drew, because the San Jose State football player Camden McWright, last week, he's riding the scooter. He got killed by a bus on campus, and they had to cancel their game. And this is going to be one of those emotional type games from the outset here for the San Jose State University team. So, yes, it's 24.5, 25, but they have held teams. Their defense is capable of holding you to 13 or less, 10 or less, something like that. And Nevada's offense really has been by the wayside all season long as they transition. So, yes, big numbers and small totals. Usually you have correlation parlays, right? Dog and under, favorite and over. But you generally don't like to lay a bunch of points when the total is this low. However, I could see something in the vicinity of 37-7. I really think this is going to be one of those games where San Jose State's kids I
think we lost Robbie for a second. He'll probably come back like the first 2 times. But one thing I want to bring up, guys, is, with the player being killed, they canceled it last week. It's always, in itself, just handicapping the game kind of difficult because it's not like a bye week where you're preparing for extra time for the team you're playing. It's more like you're preparing for that game last week. Something happens, you cancel the game, and then you got to start kind of re-up it. It's a very difficult handicap in itself. Robbie, just, final thoughts here on the final game.
Yeah, and San Jose State, Drew, is chasing for a conference title. They're in the mix this year. So I think the emotion just with the extra week to have this thing, how do I say? I don't want to say set up, but the fans will be electric. The team will be energized. And if they get out in front big, Nevada's pass offense, I don't think can come back because that's San Jose State. For those that have seen that front seven get after the quarterback, it's reminiscent of a couple of years back when they had that really good football team. Yeah. They look a lot like that defensively. So I'm going to lay it, Drew. Like I say, I'm not, I'm a long time in this business and as a bettor, but this time I'm going to. I just think we might see something in the vicinity of like 34-7, 37-10, something like that.
I like it, Robbie. Great breakdown as always. Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. We'll get a most confident play from him. Appreciate everybody in my Twitter DMs on Twitter saying, "Where's Rob Veno?" Always, he's a fan favorite, staple here on the Every Game on the Board podcast. Obviously knows his college football, guys, with the analysis. Check him out at wagertalk.com. Robbie, any final thoughts for the show? And do you have a most confident play for us?
Yeah, let's first just thank everybody who's, there's people that have supported this Every Game on the Board show, Drew, for as long as it's been on. You see it in the comment section all the time. Been listening to you guys since the first time you ever did this show. So thank you to everybody who watches, who listens. Hopefully we steer you in the right direction this week. If I was going to try and give you one, out of the swatch of games that we did that I think is the best bet. I think South Florida plus 17.5 is very, very live with their rush offense against Houston, with Houston staring at SMU next week. It was kind of easy for them. They do real well against that option attack of Navy on a yearly basis. But I think that South Florida has found something with their quarterback here, Bohannon, running the football. So might not win the game, but I think sticking within 17 and a hook is key because you can lose the game 24-7 and still cash your ticket. So 17 and a hook is a big number. We'll take it.
Robbie Veno going with the big underdog, South Florida plus 17.5. Robbie, I mean, does the money line intrigue you at all, or no, not really? Just take the 17.5.
No, not really. I don't.
Okay, that's a probably not from Robbie Veno. It is plus 650 on the money line. That would be risk 100, win 650. But Robbie, great stuff as always, guys. Check him out, wagertalk.com. Please smash the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to reply below. Any questions, comments, all is welcome. For Rob Veno, I am Drew Martin. That does it for every game on the board, and we'll be back next week. 4 more segments, breaking them down each and every week. So thanks for tuning in. Have a fun, safe weekend. Cash those tickets.